Welcome back to a very exciting Rebels Edge. Exciting because we were in the green across the board, and now there's only one indice that's still in the green. We'll tell you why we flipped, to the best of our knowledge anyway, in the last half hour, right after this on today's Rebels Edge.
And there she goes.
There she goes. Wow. That was a pretty big flip, Pete, today.
It was.
I mean, I didn't see it coming. I thought that, from Friday, that those hedge funds that were selling so aggressively in the chip names on Friday were getting ready for some of what we're seeing here today. But after yesterday, I thought maybe it was an all clear, even though we didn't recapture all of the losses from Friday by any means. Nonetheless, it was, a nice little comeback. And now perhaps people have been raising money here before the SpaceX IPO. That's a real possibility, but it just seems more and more like somebody out there with a very large holding is really hitting these AI and semiconductor stocks. And that's why the Nasdaq is leading the charge to the downside here. Mm-hmm. The Dow is only down less than 0.5%, but the Nasdaq was down 1.7%, like that, Pete.
Unbelievable. I mean, it really, you're exactly right. The way it was hit, interesting to see that. I mean, some of the names, John, that are pulling things down for the Nasdaq is names like Marvell, Strategy, Qualcomm. Shoot, you can go through a whole bunch of AMD. So it is getting hit pretty good. AppLovin is another one. It's getting hit. It's a pretty amazing trip that we've already been on. We're only a little over 2 hours or thereabouts, into the trading session, and here we are. I mean, Nasdaq was absolutely sprinting to the upside. It ain't sprinting to the upside anymore. That turn was a turn and burn to the downside, and it's you know what? I think you're probably right. If you're talking about why they're doing it, maybe they are looking to try to raise some money. It would make some sense based upon what we're seeing in terms of IPOs that are going to be coming out that are getting a lot of conversations going, I think, on all the business networks for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is what it is, Pete, and maybe it's partially this report that Social Security may be depleted by 2032. And that's a new trustee reporting that. And boy, anybody who's been watching this for the last, 30, 40 years knows that the money ain't there, that they keep robbing Peter to pay Paul, meaning they keep tapping into that Social Security and putting it over here to pay for whatever. I think anybody who's really thinking that after 2032, they're going to be getting what they paid into Social Security might be sadly mistaken, Pete, or at least not getting what they thought they might get, which is why I started taking mine last year.
I need to start. Shoot.
Well, you're not old enough. I guess you might be able to, though. Well, oil down 4% today, folks. Other than the Nasdaq flip that we just were speaking of, I'll say oil being down 4% with an 87 handle. That's the macro that I would normally say, Pete, other than this big flip in the Nasdaq. How about you?
Yeah, I was prepared for it before this Nasdaq move that we suddenly got, because earlier in the session, Nasdaq looked pretty damn good. Things were moving to the upside in a nice way. And then all of a sudden the carpet gets pulled out and they're dropping like a dog, Mr. Wally. But it's interesting to see, John, with WTI down 4% or something like that. And it's, it's something we like to see. This is the one time that we've seen this where we're seeing the crude go down. And I'll jump ahead a little bit to the VIX, and you're wearing one of the VIX hats. But you look over at the VIX, it was there. It was trading around 18. It popped to 20, came right back down underneath 19. And now, because it's getting hit even a little bit harder the market. That's why I think we're seeing the VIX itself get back up towards 20 again, which is something that, a few days ago, we probably wouldn't have expected to see the markets with a 20 handle in terms of the VIX. But that's exactly where we are right now. Could it shift around and move right back into the low 18s? I think it could. But it's going to take a little bit of movement, maybe in the positive way, I would say, for some of these names that are just getting hammered right now, John, on the Nasdaq side.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at a prediction exchange then after the VIX there, Pete. Prediction exchanges, the SpaceX IPO. And keep in mind, folks, we had to pick these ahead of time, or I would have picked perhaps something else. But as you can see here, officially added to the S&P 500 in 2026. At one point, it was, when somebody proposed this, just in the last day or so, it was up as much as 68% chance. Yeah. Now, apparently, they've dropped it to 29% chance. And I don't know what they're smoking, Pete. I don't know how you have the biggest cap stock forever, because this is the biggest IPO ever. I don't know how you have the biggest stock in one of the most exciting areas of the S&P, that is space, both exploration, communication, perhaps even mining and all that, Pete. I don't know how it goes down to a 20% chance. Really? Have you guys looked at the 500 stocks that are in the S&P 500? Do you really think a lot of them, other than the top 30 or so stocks, Pete, do you think any of those should be in instead of SpaceX? And I'll say, F no.
I think you're right, John, but I would just try to get in the head of those folks that have pushed this thing all the way down to 20, 21%, whatever it might be right now. I would say that maybe they're just looking at the calendar. Maybe they're just saying, you know what? It comes out in the IPO. You probably don't rush to put anything IPO'd into the market, into the S&P, that is, maybe for, a number of months until the things kind of smooth out and it gets a little bit easier. But that would be the only thing. And I'm not saying that I believe that. I'm just saying that's the possibility that somebody else must be looking at, because I'm with you. I mean, something that's got a, $1.7 trillion market cap or whatever it is, John. I mean, it's, let's be serious. This is going to be big. And if anything goes into the S&P, you would think that this name might be pretty high on the list.
Yeah. And it's a cap weighted index, folks, which means, of course, that the capitalization of the company going into, or that is part of the index, has a weighting that is based on how much is the capitalization. And again, there are only 2 or 3 stocks, Pete, that are over this one right now. Apple and NVIDIA are 2 of them, and Google's number 3. So you're really telling me that this one at number 4 wouldn't be in the S&P 500? I'll take the other side of this bet. Right. I don't even know if anybody will take it. But I'm going to try to go on to Polymarket and do that, Pete, because I think this is a bad bet by whoever thinks it's only a 20% chance. Keep in mind, it's not like based on, by the end of this month. It's through 2026, the rest of the year, 7 months almost. Yeah. So anyway, that's where I am with it, Pete. Let's take a look at Smucker, SJM. It was up 7%, 8%, 10%. Now it's up 12%. Quarterly earnings, $2.77 a share. That's about 12 cents better than the street was looking for, Pete. And about, in the neighborhood of 40 cents better per share earnings than last year at this time. So I'd say Smucker's is doing pretty well. And of course, that's why the stock is holding on and building on that gain that I just spoke of.
Well, and it's right there with everything we've been talking about during this earnings season, and we've been talking about for earnings, John, now for multiple quarters in a row, where these guys crushed it. They absolutely did everything that you would want to see. They, a year ago it was up $2.30 as far as the earnings. Now they're $2.77, which is, they were looking for $2.65. I would say that you look at it from last year, pretty impressive move. You look at it compared to what everybody was expecting, a pretty damn impressive move. They did miss on the revenues a little bit, John. So that would be one thing that probably I think if you want to poke anything at this thing, you could say that. But it was not a big miss either. So I think people were looking past that, and they're pretty satisfied with what they see with Smuckers, which is why, like you said, 10%, now 12%. This thing is having a pretty nice day post earnings.
Well, let's hit this one then, Pete. Nuvalent. Now, I know we don't talk about this one a heck of a lot, folks, but Pete and I did talk yesterday about Tango Therapeutics, which had just had a monster report on their response rate in pancreatic cancer trials. This one, Nuvalent, is also an oncology treatment, and perhaps, I'm not going to say cure, Pete, but I am going to say treatment that lets people live longer with that dread disease. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be taken private, basically a $10.6 billion deal by GlaxoSmithKline, GSK. Mm-hmm. So it gives you an idea that when Pete and I were talking about, whoa, you think maybe somebody's going to take a look at Tango next? I would say, Pete, all of GSK's competitors are going to be taking a hard look at that one today.
I think you're exactly right, John. I mean, this is a massive deal. It's unbelievable, really. $10.6 billion for this company. So bringing it private, it's amazing. It's incredible. You know, the momentum that's coming right now and the cheap valuation that we were getting out of Nuvalent, solid, you know, when you're looking at the pipelines that they've got and so forth, it really fits just about everything you can imagine. And it's up 35% for all the right reasons, with Glaxo's it's just saying, hey, look, we want to own this thing. And we're going to take this thing in. And to your point, there's the stock we were talking about yesterday that had an unbelievable move, and they were only in phase 2, but that phase 2 numbers were absolutely extraordinary at 1.92%. And then they were looking at 100% in terms of what they were able to do trying to work with the pancreatic cancer. So I would say that people are looking at the cancer side of things in a big way right now for all the right reasons, because it is something that, you know, we all hear about, we all know about it. And it's something that I think if you can find anybody out there who's having any kind of success, wow, that is worth exactly what it is. And in this case, it's worth $10.6 billion.
Right. Well, when there is no successful treatment for pancreatic cancer yet, Pete, and I say yet because I suspect that whether it's Tango or whether it's Nuvalent, somebody's going to have a very nice revenue stream for a long time, because a lot of people die of pancreatic cancer. And again, there is no cure. Right. So thank goodness that there are people out there spending the billions of dollars that it takes to get this across the finish line. Mm-hmm. And certainly GlaxoSmithKline has those billions to still spend, Pete. Yeah. But let's switch gears over to United Natural Foods, UNFI. This one down hard, Pete. Earnings 77 cents a share. So that was in line, and that's okay. And then the other part of it, how much revenue, easy for me to say, did they have? 7.7 billion, down over 4% year over year, and they missed by over $100 million in sales. That's why this one is down hard on double full session volume just in the first 3 hours of trading today, Pete.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, the full year guidance was below expectations as well, John. But the one thing, they had one positive that I could pull out of this thing, and I had to search, and I don't think it's probably not why it's getting that little bit of a lift. It's probably getting a little bit of a lift because people are probably thinking that's enough. The selling, that might be enough. But the gross margins, John, they were up, to 13.6%. So that was something that, I always want to look through, hey, what was the worst thing? What was the best thing? Well, that was the best thing that I could find. But to your point, I mean, there's a good reason why this thing is down 15%. When you come in line and you miss on the revenue and so forth, not so great, that's for sure. And net sales decreasing the way it did, like you said, 4%. So a lot of negatives in there. I just found one positive that might be able to give them a little hope for the next quarter or so. But other than that, yeah, that UNFI is they're under some pressure today. There's no doubt about it.
Well, let's talk about cybersecurity and a stock that's getting hit today hard, even before the sell-off started for the Nasdaq, and that's SailPoint, SAIL. It was down 12% in the pre-market, Pete. The stock continued to be hit, still down about 12%. Year over year, it was 24 a year ago, Pete, right now, and right now it's 1550. So in other words, it ain't been a great year for these guys. And that's not a year-to-date number, that's year over year. Revenue did grow, however. It's up 22%. So that's a good thing if you wanted to hang your hat on anything and say that maybe after this big sell-off took it down, $9 from last year's high, maybe it is worth taking a look at here because top line, bottom line numbers both exceeded expectations.
They did. There is some more negatives that do come with this whole thing. The soft earnings outlook that they've got. They also, the operating loss that they've got. They were looking for 80 million or 40 million, but they actually had 80 million in losses. The deceleration of growth is another thing I'd throw at them. But to your point, they did. They had some strength in certain areas as well. So is it beaten down enough? Probably is, and probably can make some sort of a turn. This is one of those where I like the company. They did some things well enough that I think it's worth probably keeping a close eye on it. And if we see some UOA, unusual option activity, for the people who don't know, this one would be one of those where if we saw that, John, I'd be pretty interested in it because I do think this thing could maybe make a bounce. It was soft as far as the outlook, as I mentioned. It's not like they were awful. It's just a little bit soft. So, I think the opportunities are there, and these guys maybe could make that turn next quarter. And if we see some of that unusual option activity, we'll start thinking even more about that.
All right. Well, another interesting video today, Pete. Yesterday it was the Hurricanes playing and that Las Vegas Knights and the Hurricanes, Carolina Hurricanes. This one is a guy that Pete talked about already because he's, I think, got the top 10 highest speed pitches in Major League Baseball. But a former major leaguer, Pete, is now going to break it down why it ain't just the speed that makes this guy so scary. So let's take a look and a listen.
I've faced some of the hardest throwers in baseball, and I'm going to tell you why. This kid is different in 60 seconds. Jacob Misiorowski is 6'7", throws 101 to 103 every single pitch, and just put up a .23 ERA in May with 57 strikeouts and 6 starts. 1 earned run in 38 innings, but here's what makes him unhittable. It's not just the velocity. I've faced DeGrom, Chapman, Sale, Cole. Pure gas doesn't scare big league hitters anymore. What scares you is when a guy releases the ball 7.5 feet closer to home plate than anyone else in baseball. That's a 100th percentile extension. That means his 102 plays like 105. You lose 2 to 3 ticks of reaction time.
That's why that 6'7" body, man.
The difference between a foul ball and a strikeout. Extension turns throwers into pitchers. And here's the thing that should give every young arm hope. Misiorowski wasn't throwing 103 in college. He was mid-90s at a non-D1 program. Nobody recruited him. He got into the right system, got the right coaching, learned how to use his body, and became this. Development is everything. You don't need a pedigree. You need the right environment and time to grow into what you can be. So if you're a young pitcher with velocity, here's what I'll tell you. Learn extension. Learn to command the baseball. Harness the gift and become a pitcher, because that's when elite becomes untouchable. And right now, Misiorowski might be the most untouchable arm in baseball.
I think he is.
Some of the hardest throwers in baseball. And I'm going to tell you.
He is. He is one of the hardest throwers, and he's controlled, Pete. Because like he said, 56 strikeouts in May in 5 starts or whatever it was. So you're averaging 10 or 11 strikeouts a game. Come on.
Unbelievable. I got a good buddy whose son is a pitcher, John. He was at Miami, and then he went to Arizona. And I think he's around 6'8" as well. And I don't think people fully understand when you have that kind of length and your arm length is there as well. Like he was just talking about, 103 is 105. Well, this guy's in about the 100 range. Not consistently like this, though. This guy's special. This guy, he can throw a plus 100 on every pitch if he really wanted to. That's why it's got to be amazing if you're a batter, because what if he just decides to slow down just a little bit? Now all of a sudden you're all ready for this 100-mile-an-hour thing, and he's throwing you an 85. You're probably swinging.
Yeah, you're way out ahead of it. Exactly. Well,
all right. That was good. That was good. I like that one. That kid is really special. Texas Tech football, John. This has become the topic of topics this year. And, you know, obviously we all know about the portal. We all know about NIL. We all know about all these various things. But this kid has been multiple places already. And Brandon Sorsby obviously wanted to play because they said, look, you had a gambling issue. You're not going to play. Well, they went to a new judge in Lubbock and granted an injunction. And so he misses the first, I think it's 2 games, John. But after that, he can play. Well, nobody in the Big 12 is very happy about that. As a matter of fact, they've come together and said, you know what, we might just not play that game. Now, I can't imagine that they would go that far, but they could. And then all of a sudden, we're hearing guys from the SEC, we're hearing from guys in the Big 10 that are saying, hey, look, this is not right. It's not going to, we're not going to stand for it. And by the way, we aren't going to, in other sports other than football, we're just going to say, and Nebraska is another one of those that stands out, who's been very, very vocal about this whole thing. They basically just said, look, we're not going to schedule them for anything in any sport. Texas Tech is not going to be there. So what do you think about this whole thing, John? I mean, you can understand, well, the kid was a kid and he was an idiot and he was doing exactly what he knew what he was doing, but, he has a problem and blah, blah, blah. Now, he did go to this whole thing and went through the process of trying to shake it, but it already happened. And I'll tell you, I don't know if the penalty, the 2 games, is enough. What do you think about this whole thing? Because betting has become huge. And I'll tell you what, you got to put a little bit of the finger pointing, whether it's in the NFL or NCAA. I think the finger pointing has to go back to some of the folks who have approved a lot of this stuff already anyway. Not betting on your own games, but just the whole betting on these games. It's gotten a little out of hand, I'd say.
Well, this was an anonymous quote that I pulled up, Pete. So since it's anonymous, I don't know which Big 12 coach said it. But he said, if this is the precedent, then I owe it to my players to bring in people from Vegas to teach us how to gamble. Then collectively, we will need to decide which games we will play hard in order to cover the spread and which games we won't. Now, obviously that's tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
Here's what I will say, Pete. The kid did go through, whatever the 12-step gambling addiction protocol is. Mm-hmm. He last did this, according to all the things that I saw, Pete, when he was a redshirt at Indiana.
Yeah.
And he went from Indiana to Cincinnati, the Bearcats, and now he is transferred to this one. So whoever dug up this stuff on him obviously doesn't want him to play for the Red Raiders because he's that good. I mean, everywhere this kid's been at 6'3" and 235, he's been a winner, with the exception, I guess, of the redshirt year at Indiana. But the kid's been a winner. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, while he was at Indiana, and perhaps because he was redshirted and couldn't play that year, he was gambling. Mm-hmm. And, again, I don't know if it was the same time that he was redshirted, Pete, because all I know is that the charge is that he was gambling while at Indiana, and he did play some games at Indiana, and then he was redshirted for others. So he got there in 22, played 10 games, 7 starts, and in 2023. So I didn't know. What if he was doing this, Pete, when he was redshirted? Yeah. He couldn't impact the game, right? I mean, this is not like he's saying, well,
threw a pick on purpose.
Threw a couple picks on purpose so we'd lose or something. Now I don't know, but he was redshirted in 22. Was that when he was gambling, or was it when he was playing with 7 starts in 23 and he threw for 15 touchdowns? Didn't sound like he was throwing too many games
right
at Indiana, and certainly not at Cincinnati, and he's not even accused of anything during that time. So do I think, if that's the case, that I would give him a chance to play again if I were the NCAA or the judge? And I'd say I would. Because these guys, you can't be just a little bit dirty.
right.
If you're taking money from FanDuel and all of these, MGM and everybody else, which it seems like all sports are, they don't have FanDuel logos on their shirts yet for college, but that's coming. Trust me, that's coming, Pete. So if that's something that you guys want to dance with the devil, I don't know how you all of a sudden say to a kid that perhaps was gambling 3 seasons ago, and maybe even when he was being redshirted. I think 2-game suspension is enough. But if these guys say, hey, we don't want to play him or anything else, okay, look in the mirror, guys. How many guys on your team have DUIs or rape charges or anything else? And you think this is worse than that, and you're letting those guys play? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a really, really a tough thing, because this guy was one of the, if not the biggest name in the, the whole, trying to figure out where you're going. Portal. Yeah. So, it was amazing when they signed him, and now, this has really kind of turned into something really bad. Guys are, it's disgusting. It's this, it's that, it's whatever. All right, John, last night, the president was there, the Knicks, the Spurs in the Garden, pretty classic. But I'll say this, why did they lose at home? They just went on the road. They steal 2 games, right, down in San Antonio. So the Knicks are sitting there feeling pretty good about things, and they didn't play great. As a matter of fact, I'll put it pointed at one guy, Big Cat, for whatever reason. And this has happened before where, unfortunately he gets a slump. A lot of people do. But we were talking about this just the other day, John, that, if you got Wemby out there, he stepped up. He stepped up in a big way, 32 points last night, 8 rebounds and 3 blocks. That's not such a bad game. And I think that's what carried the Spurs. But unfortunately for the Knicks, Big Cat just really struggled. He in game 1, he was 46% shooting, 18 points. Then he was 66% shooting, 21 points. They won both those games. They lost last night, but he was shooting 40% and had 11 points. And Big Cat needs to be the Big Cat that he was in the first 2 games. If he can get back there, and by the way, the last time he had a game that bad was against Philly on May 8th. And he had the same sort of thing, 40%. His numbers were down a little bit. But I'll tell you what, this could follow up into a game 4 like it did last time for him, where he was 71% shooter and 17 points. That's what they have to have happen. So do they have to be panicked about anything else? No, they just need Big Cat, John, for the Knicks. And if he can do it, I think they can slam dunk this whole thing. What do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Pete. He can't go in the tank 2 games in a row. And certainly in those first 2 games where he basically averaged 20 points and like 12 rebounds or more and 4 assists, that's a man's job right there. Now, in this one, he didn't. Like you say, he scored 11 points, and that ain't getting it done. Not when you're playing them this close, because they were that close all game, Pete. The Knicks were. I mean, the Knicks were, I would, be watching, and it was 86-89, and then the Knicks would tie it, and then it's 92-89, and the Knicks would tie it again. I mean, it was just back and forth like that. It was almost who was going to get the ball last.
Yeah.
But if he scores 20 points, they are winning going away, Pete. But instead, he had 2 blocks. Okay, that's good. But how many did Wemby have? His usual. And that's the problem. They got to put a big body on Wemby. When we saw OKC do that, and the subsequent games when they put a big body on him, he would not be as good in the next game as he was in that game where the big body was on him, whether it's Holmgren, Chet, or whether it's the other guy, Pete, the big white center. But man, I like it better as a 2-1 series right now than I'd like it if it was 3-0, because it's damned hard to come back from 3. But 2-1 means it's going to be a dogfight.
Yeah. Well, in the second quarter, they dropped 42 points. I mean, the Knicks were on fire, and then it kind of went back over to the other side of things, and the Spurs came back. And you get Wemby out there. You're exactly right. You got to put a big body on there and just move him around. I mean, look, it's not being unfair. It's just part of the game or whatever. And sometimes you got to be a little bit more physical. And if you had some big body on him, he's going to wear down. But they did the right thing. The coach did a great job of getting him inside where he's going to dunk the ball. At 7'5", it's pretty tough to block those. So it'll be interesting to see how everybody adjusts. And Big Cat's got to make the shots. That's what it comes down to. He can't be shooting 40%. If he's shooting 40%, you might as well just say, you know what, we got to go to the next game, because he is that meaningful, and he's such a great player, John. Watched him forever with the Timberwolves, and great guy. Got to know him a little bit. Walked around the state fair with him. And I'll tell you what, a lot of looks on that guy when you're a 7-footer strolling around. That's for sure.
That's for sure. Well, let's see what happens next, Pete. And let's see what those tickets are going for all these people that are spending, 2 months worth of high New York City rent or more just to be in the nosebleed seats. Forget about the other seats. You're not anywhere near where Trump was sitting last night.
That's for sure.
But all right. Well, thanks for joining us, folks. Pete and I will be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Encourage all of you guys to join us then. And let's see what happens with the market and with Wemby in the next couple days. We'll hear a lot about it, I'm sure. Yeah. All right, Pete. See you tomorrow.
See ya. 1 o'clock.